Okay, one of the last videos I want to be doing is the video on entomology. First off, entomology is the study of insects. Okay, now these insects, why they're so important is they arrive on the body almost immediately after death, and they are laying eggs. And we know the life cycle of these insects. We know how long it takes for these eggs to hatch into maggots and larvae. We know how long it takes for that larvae to turn to pupa and pupa to an adult. So because of these life cycle stages for different insects, we can get an idea how long a body's been dead. So this helps us gauge how long someone's been dead with the mortises, with all the other signs of decomp that we can use. Okay, so we kind of combine it all together to get an idea. So, like we said, entomology, study of insects on corpse. All right, so look at this very first picture. Almost every single insect has these four major stages. Stage one is your eggs. Stage two is your larvae. A lot of flies have three stages of larvae. You can see it right here. So there's the eggs. First stage larvae, second stage larvae, third stage larvae. Now please understand, larvae is a scientific name for maggots. Okay, so here's these maggots getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So the life cycle of your fly starts off with eggs, and then it goes to your larvae, and then it goes to your cocoon. This is called the pupa stage. Okay, and then finally they hatch into an adult fly. So there's those four stages. Okay, so just some general information about these things. Flies arrive at a body as soon as possible. They love hot, moist, wet areas, so they're immediately going to lay their eggs. Okay, now these eggs, it takes 24 hours, approximately 24 hours for them to hatch into the first stage larvae. Now to go from the first stage larvae to the next, second stage larvae is another 24 hours approximately. So it kind of helps to lock in that number, 24 eggs to hatch. First stage to second stage larvae, 24. Second stage larvae to third stage larvae, another 24 hours. So within 1, 2, 3 days, you should have third stage larvae, the largest maggots you can find on the body. Now, once these third stage larvae have formed on the body, they are going to leave the body. And they're going to find a dry area where they then can turn themselves into this little cocoon, this pupa stage, and it's an outer, harder shell, and that's where they're going to stay. So just know the maggots will leave the body to go to this pupa stage, okay, before they'll hatch into an adult. All right, so if we look up here, like we said, a female can lay up 250 eggs, and these, once a female lays the eggs, that fly is going to die. All right. So I think we're going to skip this. Oh, this is an interesting fact we better mention, is the more maggots, the more living things you find on a body, it is going to increase the body's temperature. So remember we talked about alga mortis, and your body's going to drop 1 degree Fahrenheit per hour. There have been cases where there has been so many maggots inside the body that when they put that thermometer in the liver, the body was actually warmer than maybe what we'd say like 98 degrees, or warmer than what it should have been. And that's because of this. Masses of third stage maggots can increase the temperature around them up to 10 degrees Celsius. So 10 degrees, it's one of those things that, once again, more living things means more chemical reactions and increasing heat. All right. So this is the cycle I would suggest you memorize. And like I said, this first part gets kind of easy. 23, 24, 22. So I would just lock in, it's approximately 24 hours. Okay, 24, 24, 24. Now for here to create that pupa stage, we're getting into that 130 hours. Okay, a lot longer. And then to go to that pupa to hatch into the adult fly, we're looking at 143 hours. All right, so when we look at this, to go from that third stage larvae over to this pupa stage, this 130 hours, I mean, we're really looking at like 10 days. It's like 10.8, so 10 to 11 days for that pupa to form. All right, and then to go from the pupa stage down to your adult fly, we're looking at about 12 days. All right, so to go from here to here, it's 3 days. From here to here, we're going to say approximately 10 days. So now we're at 13 days, almost 2 weeks, and it's created that pupa. So if we're finding pupas anywhere along the outside of the corpse, around the ground, then we know the victim's been dead for at least 2 weeks, because that's how long it takes to create that pupa. And then finally, when we start seeing, once again, where pupas have hatched and been broken open, then we know, okay, well, that's an additional 12 days. So now we've kind of hit that, we hit our 13, 25, so we're about 25, 26 days for this full life cycle to happen. So it's what makes it so nice that you know the life cycle of insects, because you can gauge how long a victim's been there based on what you're finding around them. Okay. All right, so let's lock this to memory. 24 hours, 24, 24, and then I would just go with 10 and 12 is usually the way I've always memorized it, okay? 10, 12. So about 28 days, about 2 weeks to get to the pupa stage. All right, so now let's look here. Stage 1, all right? Like we said, itty bitty tiny little eggs. They're going to find them in the soft body tissues, warm areas. We're talking about the eyes, any open wounds. That's what they're going to be. All right. Now our stage 2, I got to move this. I got to fix that on the PowerPoint. This picture is covering up our words. Okay. So stage 2, like we said, this is when you're getting your larvae. So this is after 24 hours, you're getting your first, second, third stage maggots. And the funny thing is these maggots in a lot of countries, it is something that they like to eat for dinner. So that's kind of interesting. And I put this in here just because I don't know how many of you guys have ever heard about maggot therapy, but there are certain instances where there's a bacteria, some type of infection, and instead of amputating the foot, they might put these maggots on there. And once again, I'm just going to chomp away and eat whatever is around. So they'll put these maggots on to help clean up this infection. And you can see over time, they're putting the maggots on, they're cleaning it, and over time, it did actually heal the wounds. They didn't have to do any amputating. So maggot therapy, real, they use it. I couldn't handle it. Okay, sorry, so going back. So stage 1 is egg, stage 2 is your pupa, or stage 2 is your larvae. Stage 3 is where we get to our pupa. So this is where they're not eating. This is where they're just going to chill inside this little cocoon for about 12 days, okay, getting close to 2 weeks, until you reach your adult, right? So flies are the first things to show up. They're usually there between stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 of decomposition. They like the juices, the fluids. That's what attracts them the most. Now, something to think about. When you're filling out your table on the very back page of the notes packet, here's your green blowfly, your blue, this one is your green blowfly. Here's your green bottle, and then there's your blue bottlefly. So here's just those life cycles. I kind of want to skip to the hairy rove beetle. And once again, I got to move these pictures so you can see it better. Biggest thing to understand about beetles, I do not expect you to memorize their life cycle. The only one I want you to memorize is the flies. Okay, but the biggest thing to understand about beetles, if you look here, show up approximately day 6 of decomp and stay until approximately day 50. So like I said, they don't show up at the very, very beginning in that fresh stage. They kind of hit that putrefaction, black putrefaction. Less liquids, the better environment that they enjoy. So beetles show up at the end. They are not the first insect to show up. That's going to be your flies. Okay. All right. Yeah, looking at it, that looks like to me the most important page of this entire one is memorizing this life cycle of the fly. So, all right. There was an assignment with decomp, with entomology. I do want to pull that up. Let's look at that. Oh, not the quiz. Go back to assignments. You probably have a faster way to do this. It's the way Review assignment right here, entomology. So a body has been dead for 24 hours. What type of insect life would you expect to see on the body? So you have to understand, after 24 hours, you could still see some eggs, but a lot of those eggs have transformed into first stage larvae, which would be maggots. So you'd expect to see tiny little maggots. Okay, number 2, on the body you were able to see green bottle fly eggs, blue bottle first, second, third stage larvae. So, and there's green bottle pupas. So how long has the body been dead? So we got to figure out the stage of life cycle for the furthest one along, which is the pupa. And we know if you have the pupa stage, you're approximately at 2 weeks. So this body's been dead for at least 2 weeks. Okay, number 3, it's a larvae stage. It's hard to gauge if it's first, second, or third, but it definitely looks like it's larger than a first stage. So I'd probably say second or third stage larvae. Number 4, what's the correct order of the blowfly life cycle? Egg, larvae, pupa, adult. All right, at what stage of decomp do beetles like to show up? So they can show up as early as putrefaction, day 6. They really like to show up towards the end of stage 3 into stage 4. Okay, stage 4 is probably where you'll find the most beetles. Okay. All right, so that kind of just reviews that assignment. And then hopefully this helps you out with the quiz, and our upcoming test is coming. So, all right, that wraps it up.